Let's bring in Rashean Mathis on Mondays. I thought about this last night. I almost tweeted it. And this is the other part of Twitter, Rashean, that I sometimes can't fully process. Last week was a lot of fun because the Jags won. Everybody's like, hey, great. Yesterday was not fun.
No.
And so the amount of people that criticize other people for a job that they could not do, like not even remotely, is amazing.
Isn't that all a fandom, though?
Well, it's fandom. It's our jobs. Like, I get it, but it's one way to say it, and then there's another way to say it.
Yeah, one with passion, one without passion.
One with idiocy. I know you probably weren't much of a Twitter follower during your playing days, Rashean, but, I mean, it's got to baffle guys like you to hear some of us, but also Joe Fan, comment about your job.
Yeah, I've laughed at it for years.
To put it lightly.
I've laughed at it for years because, but that's life, right? That's the life of a fan, criticizing and critiquing someone that's, doing something that only 1% of the world can do. But that's the life of sports. And, we laugh at it, but at the same time, we understand it because we're trying to do the job and sometimes we fail at it. And yesterday was a day of that for the Jags.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe I'd be blissfully ignorant, right? Especially in those scenarios where I'm doing my job, someone else didn't do their job, but I'm getting the blame for something that went wrong.
Well, that happens a lot, right? Because they don't know the play call.
Exactly. Yeah. No one's in there watching tape like all the pros are. So, I'd like to believe I'd be blissfully ignorant, but I know someone would get to me at some point. Ever happened to you, Rashean, where, you don't have to get specific about it, but do you ever have the experience where someone said something, you're like, you have no idea what you're talking about?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Literally happened yesterday. Yeah.
Every Monday
Yes,
when he comes on with you guys. When he comes on here.
Every Monday from 4 to 5, yeah.
Yeah. That being said, I'd like to fire Trent Polke and Mike Caldwell today, Rashean.
Rashean, you have a lot of explaining to do.
You're our defensive coordinator. What the heck was that yesterday in Detroit?
Let's explain to Brent what he doesn't understand, this layman, Rashean. Let's break it down for him.
Yeah, it was ugly. I believe they didn't punt once, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it was an ugly day. We couldn't stop them on third down, and when we did stop them, they were in field goal position. So it was definitely an ugly day on the defensive side of the ball on getting turnovers.
Clearly, obviously, when a defense shuts out an offense, it's a prideful thing. You don't see it too often in the NFL, so you like to celebrate it. Is that the reverse shutout for an offense when you don't get stopped once you score on every drive, or is that something that offenses don't even care about or recognize? They just want to win the game.
Oh, no, they care about it. They care about it a lot. So
yeah, that's what I thought.
The offense is feeling great about themselves.
I bet.
Yeah,
they're feeling great about themselves today.
As they should. As they should. Listen, I'm going to get right to the chase. I'll go coach your team and help build D-bats for the next couple of weeks if you will just go play corner for the Jags.
Oh.
Because this is not working. Shaq Griffin didn't play well, got hurt, isn't coming back. I'm not really sure they want him back. They tried Trey Herndon. They are now healthy scratching him. He's just not fast enough at this point in his career, or maybe ever, for today's game. Monteric Brown, young player, they tried him. Tavon Campbell, who we've all hardly ever heard of, they're trying him. Not working. They tried Clay Brooks yesterday. Didn't work. I mean, they are trying everything, but they have an extreme soft spot at that other corner position that right now just can't be fixed, Rashean.
Yeah, and it's showing. It's showing. It's rearing its ugly head every other game. So it's definitely a soft spot in the defense. And as I said before, the scheme has to adjust to it at this point because they are trying different scenarios, different guys, and to try to allow guys to work their way in and pretty much try to see if they can fill that void. But now it's scheme. Scheme has to take over now. And hopefully we're able to do that.
Do we feel it's too late for some kind of major drastic change on the scheme or in the playbook? You had Belichick yesterday in his press conference talking Patriots. It's too late to make some big changes on offense. Is it the same thing on defense, do you think? We're just riding with what we got and trying to figure it out?
Well, I think it's too late to try to fill that void because you have what you have at this point. So from a defensive scheme standpoint, I don't think it's too late. I think you just have to lean on the guys who are put more pressure on certain guys, and that's just how it goes in sports. When a guy goes down, or from baseball to basketball, you name it. Like when a guy goes down, it puts pressure on a different part of the team, and some guys just have to step up now and show that they're worth all the hoopla that we are saying that we're praising them for. So whether it's on the other side of the corner in Campbell, or the D lineman on the D ends getting more pressure on the quarterback, or the linebackers, it has to be filled somewhere.
Yeah, I think Rashean Mathis with us, Mathis on Mondays. It's interesting you bring up scheme. I was talking to somebody today about this, and I don't know if Caldwell can play the scheme he wants to play. Isn't that scheme that he brought over from Tampa predicated on man coverage? And it's pretty obvious they don't feel comfortable playing man coverage, Rashean.
Well, yeah, it is definitely. He is man coverage oriented, and who are in the defense, meaning like what players can you count on, and it's not to try to throw anyone under the bus. It's just actually trying to put more pressure on the guys and see if they can stand up, because at some point they're going to have to stand up because it's a void in the defense. And whether that's, like I said, a safety every now and then, not showing your hand early in the down, or whether it's trying to get trying to fill the void from the linebacker standpoint as well, where you're picking different down and distances to show your hand whether you're blitzing or not. But it has to happen somewhere. Like I said, from D line to the linebackers, or from the safety position, or Campbell on the corner position. Like lean away from me. Don't show your hand as early, but knowing that you're going away from me early in the later on in the down.
Brett, it's interesting to me you put it that way, only because we were talking last segment to Maurice about Caldwell. If he does make it past this offseason, what's the expectation in the offseason into next season? I hadn't really considered in that conversation, independent of performance, independent of coaching these guys or regression or non-regression, if the scheme doesn't fit, you can't necessarily expect Caldwell to turn that around, can you?
Well, and that's why the question today is more, is this a bulky problem with personnel? We knew they were thin in the depth part of corner. We knew that going in. We also thought they were probably poorest position going in. The unknown was safety. Right. It might be their best.
Yeah.
Like it actually might be their highest performing position.
Hard to debate.
And so, yeah, you had to add more depth. You have to have more answers. Nobody expected Shaq Griffin to fall off the table like this and obviously getting hurt. And so you're kind of hitting and hoping in some areas sometimes that you don't get hurt in some spots or you play well. So I get that. I think that's almost every team. They go in, they know they're going to pay for it if they get deficient in one area. And so they've got to clean that up. But I think Caldwell probably could go look down the hall and say, listen, look at this personnel. Like, you didn't give us enough. But how involved was he in the decision-making? He was hired before free agency and the draft. So did he have input? I don't know. Like, those are the things we just don't know. Rashean Mathis with us here on a Monday talking about this defense. Did you see this coming at all? Because really the numbers haven't been unbelievable for the defense, Rashean. And do you think it might be an unsolvable problem now with 5 games remaining in the year?
Well, to speak first on Caldwell and the scheme, like you said, that's out of his control at this point. Now it's about getting guys to fit that scheme going further. And that's something that you have to address in the offseason, whether it's in the draft or whether it's free agency.
But how many personnel moves do you think you need to make it fit, if any?
It doesn't take much. If you get a solid guy on the other side, then that fills a huge void. So if you get someone that can hold their end up on the bargain on the other side, that on the other side of Campbell, that kind of solves a lot of the problem right there.
So we're saying literally just being able to run man coverage more often at a competent level.
Well, and a trustworthy level.
Changes the outlook of this entire defense. Forget about the fact that we're struggling to get home and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, that changes the outcome of every defense in the league.
Sure.
If you're able to match up and run man
Yes.
coverage up and down the field, that sets you apart from most teams in the league because not many teams are able to do that. And so that would set you apart itself. So I think that is something that we do need to address in the offseason, whether it's free agency or in the draft, to get someone here that they trust in believe that can hold up their end on their end of the bargain on that side of the field. And it goes to show up and down the NFL, corner is not an easy position to play. So that's why I say that safety leaning later or the scheme, like mixing up your scheme a little, it'll help those guys out. It'll help those guys out tremendously. And I agree with you, Brent. The safety position is one of the strongest positions on the defense side of the ball, and it has proven week in and week out.
Yeah, it's been a pleasant surprise, and I think we've seen the growth of Cisco. I'm not sure how much yesterday would have changed with Cisco in the lineup, but certainly you want him in the lineup. And Rashean Jenkins, to me, has played really well. Goff looked, when they did have success, which, by the way, very few, we're talking plays, very few moments they had success, but they actually did force a couple of field goals. And when they got him off the field on third down, they did use the blitz, Foye Oluokun, some others. Is it just hard to say, hey, we're going to blitz this guy because he looks really uncomfortable? Because that's what I was kind of yelling at. I was like, okay, well, they're dinking and dunking, and they are just really setting the tone. You can't stop anything. They're going up and down the field. The only thing that looked effective to me yesterday was the 3 or 4 times that they called the blitz on third down, and it got me thinking, why not call it more, even if you do think you got to take a chance at that corner spot?
Yeah, I agree with you. When we did blitz and we did get to him and get a little pressure on him, it was just about trusting that on a more consistent basis, which is hard for a defensive coordinator when you're kind of getting beat and you're kind of getting burnt in different areas. And I think that's kind of how they felt yesterday, that they couldn't call it as much as they wanted to. And if they did, they would get exposed. But they didn't call it as much, and Goff was able to dink and dunk, like you said, whether it was up under the linebackers or over the top of the linebackers. He was able to find spots, and he had more time. He was sitting back there comfortable, and it was a long day for the defense because he was able to pick whatever he wanted to whenever he wanted to.
The linebacking play has been an issue. I don't think it's Foye Oluokun as much. Maybe there's more to it, but I'm going to give him the pass. You've got young guys, Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma, trying to find their way. It does seem like that's been an issue and a problem, and that's maybe part of the growth. It's a little frustrating because Caldwell's a linebacker at heart, so you'd love to see some growth out of that position. Maurice Jones-Drew, though, just said something in the last hour that stuck with me. My main red flag right now, I would say, on the defensive side is regression. Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, you had to bench them. Like, we're not seeing growth, Rashean, like we saw with Tyson Campbell last year, or we're seeing with Andre Cisco at times. And so, but Maurice said, hey, this is when you go home and take exams and then get back for your bowl game in college. It's always been a little bit of a cliche to say the rookie wall. Where do you put what the Jags have going on with their young players under rookie wall or under regression?
I never liked the rookie wall term, because you're a professional athlete now, and you have to adjust week in and week out. There's different schemes that you're going to face. There's different talent that you're going to face. And you have to be able to adjust as a professional athlete. So how we were able to get pressure on the quarterback and how we were able to get our hands on balls at the beginning of the season, we were praising the defense. We were praising on turnovers. We were praising Allen on his rushes and his pressures. So I think, I don't think, I actually know this. Having a void at the corner position and not being able to trust that position puts the defense under immense pressure. And it's not really talked about because now you can't blitz. Now you're getting 3 and 4 hands on your pass rushers, and they're not able to get to the quarterback. And you're trying to hold up a scheme later on the down, hoping that the offense breaks down, or hopefully that someone gets home later on in the down. And that's just too much pressure on the defense.
I just thought originally as we entered into the season, I thought they knew what they had in the secondary. But the hope was that guys like Hamilton, Smoot, Key, but more likely Allen and Trayvon Walker were going to get home more often, that they could cover some of the shortcomings in that secondary.
Yeah, but I think, Aaron, I will say this. Early in the season, there was a thought. I talked to somebody, and everybody was talking about pass. Everybody loves to talk about the pass rush not getting home, and they might be, and they're right to some degree. I'm not saying this, well, you're wrong, right? No. But there was a thought early in the season that when the pass rush wasn't getting home, let's just say weeks 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there, that they weren't covering long enough. Like they weren't doing their job in the back end enough. And some of that, by the way, was even Shaq Griffin. Remember how we were talking about this football team as it was built? I said it. I thought it was the strength of the football team. They had Darius Williams. They had Shaq Griffin, who I thought played better last year than people wanted to give him credit for. And they had an up-and-comer in Tyson Campbell. I thought it was a strength of their football team and one of the strengths across the entire league if you look at a trio like that. My goodness, has that really blown up because of the one spot, to Rashean's point. Now I've got one other question about that, Rashean. Why don't they just try Darius Williams out there and try something different in the nickel spot?
Because the nickel spot is one of the toughest spots. We kind of addressed it a little earlier this year on the show. The nickel spot, you have to know the defense in and out. Not everyone can go inside and play nickel. The nickel is a special position. And it takes a lot of knowledge. It takes a lot of swag. It takes a lot of confidence to understand the different schemes. If we're just playing man-to-man, yes, you can line someone else in that slot, not just anybody, because the nickel still have to cover more ground. But if you're just playing man-to-man, you can do that. But when you're playing zone coverages, knowing the defense in and out is very, very extremely important.
So that's interesting. Let me just make sure I heard correctly. Because, so if you could stay, let's just take this all the way back then. I'll be a defender of Caldwell right now. Because Caldwell wants to play man-to-man primarily. That's his scheme. That's what he brings over from Tampa. He obviously has some young players, Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd. He got to get through some of that mud. But Shaq Griffin really not playing well has forced them into all these different, in the injury, has forced them into all these other situations where they don't trust anyone out there. But now because they switch over to the zone, it puts even more emphasis on that nickel spot. And so you actually are way better off having Darius Williams in that spot than on the outside. I mean, is that, so basically what you're telling me, Rashean, is right now Caldwell's hands are just tied.
They are tied. And as I said, if you're not able to put pressure on the other side of your defense, and because there might be a lack of trust in that area, then they're really tied. So that's why I'm saying the only other option is your scheme changes, or the scheme stays the same, and you put more pressure on that on the strong side of your defense.
Yeah. The other thing too, though, is I'll be surprised if they don't pick somebody up in the next day. I mean, you got to hit the waiver wire. You've got to find somebody to play the position.
Yeah.
So and help you out. Why not? I mean, keep trying.
I mean, nothing you got to work.
It just doesn't seem to be working. By the way, I had no problem with them going to Buster Brown and trying it out. He was a 7th-round pick. Try it out. But it's obviously not it. It's just not working for him right now. Hey, I'm only going to keep you one segment today, so we'll keep you for a couple more minutes. We'll go a little long here. Rashean Mathis on Mondays. How much did you learn anything from Trevor yesterday? Obviously, he doesn't have the bad injury, which it really looked like. He comes back and leads him down the field. But I said earlier in the show, it's really hard to know anything about Trevor. It was like a neutral game for him. I didn't see him do a lot wrong, but guys wouldn't catch passes. And just the whole game plan looked like it was thrown off by the first 20 minutes of that football game. And I think it was just like, okay, we'll see you next week, Trevor, and hopefully we take it from there.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him. He's tough as nails, and that's what you want out of your franchise player. You want your franchise player to be able to take a licking and keep on ticking, because your team is looking at that. They're trying to see what type of leader they have. And like you said, you didn't see nothing fancy, but you didn't see him do anything wrong. He definitely didn't hurt his team. We made a turnover on the first drive, and he still went down, and we tried to drive down the field again. So he's doing everything that he needs to do. It's just trying to protect him and not expose him as much and get off the field on defense.
Yeah, and I thought he was good in the post game. I think, obviously, all eyes on Trevor. That was such a big deal for him not to get hurt for the year so he can continue to develop going forward. And I actually look at it now like this, Rashean. I feel like last week against Baltimore, some of the comments, some of the everything, like I trust him. I want the ball in his hands right now. Like I think he's feeling pretty good about himself. And I think he is now – he's tried to take ownership in the past over this football team, but I think his play now is also dictating, okay, I can take the keys to this car. I sense that's happening right now. That might take another few weeks, might even take into next year, but I actually sense like that's happening here in Jacksonville, that Trevor Lawrence is taking the car and he's driving it, and he's like, I got this.
I totally agree. He's prime and ready. I think we were looking for growth, and we've seen him grow over this year tremendously. And some of us had doubt, some of us didn't. And as I said, I always believed in his talent. It was just putting key pieces around him, and the receivers are playing better. So give kudos to them as well. We have a running game that's efficient, and Kurt and Jones, they're all playing great. And we was questioning them at the beginning of the season whether they need to find someone else. Not saying that another receiver wouldn't help, but they're stepping up and they're answering the call as well.
Yeah, I think I don't have a lot of concern about the offense. Now, yesterday was ugly at times with the drops. I get it. Like, that wasn't great. But overall, I think is what Rashean's talking about, too. The totality. I've got a lot of confidence in this offense going forward. And they're going to add Calvin Ridley. I mean, there's some great confidence in that. All right, before I let you go, I was hoping that you had to tackle Derrick Henry at one time, but you didn't. You got out. He got in. So you didn't have to worry about Derrick Henry. Hardest guy you've ever had to tackle from a running back position? Eddie George? Jamal Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Jamal Lewis.
A wrecking ball.
I hit him one time from the side, and he kept moving like I didn't even touch him. It was like you said, Eddie George. There was a lot of Priest, Holmes. There was a lot of guys that I can name. The bus. But Jamal Lewis, he made me feel like I didn't even touch him.
I feel like these guys,
and I felt every bit of it.
I feel like these guys like Jamal Lewis, Jerome Bettis would just run through people, but I'm watching Najee Harris on the Pittsburgh Steelers with this stiff arm all season long. He is burying guys like 3 yards into the dirt with this stiff arm, just planting them under the grass as he moves past them. I got to imagine that's way more humiliating than getting knocked over.
Well, I can't say no one has ever stiff-armed me like that. So I really don't understand how it happens, but it happens week in and week out. So maybe it's a new skill,
like a new move or something
that the running backs have now that they didn't have back then.
Teaching them karate in high school or something.
Well, Derrick Henry's known for it, by the way. I mean, how good, in your opinion, is Derrick? And just from a challenge, everybody knows he's getting the football, and he usually still delivers.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. It's something when you have guys or young kids, regardless of how old they are, how big they are, wanting to be you, whether they can run the ball or not, and trying to stiff arm people, and that's all they want to do. It's a generational talent. Like he's big, strong, fast, you name it. So and kudos to his line, right? The offensive line giving him holes, and you give the ball like that to a guy that big, that fast, and that strong 25 times a game, you're not going to want to tackle him all those times. So, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it is like a fight with him, and it kind of does. I'm glad you brought up Jamal Lewis, because it is kind of like the old Baltimore Ravens games that you guys would have. And both teams were physical, but you get to a point where you're like, it's not like you throw in the towel. You just don't have any juice left by the fourth quarter to do it, right?
That's exactly right. You want to bring 2 chin straps in your lunch pail, but at the end of the day, the fourth quarter is going to come around, and you want to be the quarter horse.
Yeah, it shows you all the conditioning, all the work put in. That he's better conditioned probably than the rest of them. which is amazing, and a testament to him. The Jags get Tennessee coming up on Sunday. All right, man, we're going to let you go. It almost sounds like you're putting up a wall or something at D-Bats. Like, I have no idea if you're there, but it sounds like construction is going well regardless.
It is. It's going great. It's going great. So the walls are up. They're going up. Frame is built. So it's an exciting time for the D-Bat family.
All right, down in St. Augustine, probably maybe estimation of April, May-ish in the spring for Rashean Mathis and D-Bats. All right, man, we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully it's a little bit better of a story for that Jaguars defense.
Yes, hopefully so. You guys have a great day.
All right, thanks.
Good week.